What happens to your personal information when you're on the internet? If you go on Google, your every move is being tracked and shared with advertisers. Google says they're fine-tuning their privacy policy. But is it about us or them? John Simpson, consumer advocate with consumer Watchdog. Thomas Catan, reporter with the Wall Street Journal. Good evening, gentlemen, and thank you for being with us. All right.
Good evening. Hi.
Hi. Now, we have a company, Google, whose mantra is do no evil, with an incredibly checkered record of privacy violations, including as recently as a week ago. So how do we trust these people? John?
Well, I think one of the things we need to understand is we sometimes think of ourselves as Google's customers. We're not. We're Google's product. Their whole business model is based on assembling digital dossiers about us and then selling ads around that. And it's a very successful business model for them. They make about $30 billion. They bring in about $30 billion in revenues a year. So we think that. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was simply going to say that I think that consumers need to understand that business model and also need to be able to get control over whether their data is shared and gathered. And one of the problems that happened last week that was revealed in the Wall Street Journal after a Stanford researcher, Jonathan Meyer, established this, was that Google was circumventing settings on the Safari browsers to put down tracking cookies.
Okay.
These are little bits of computer code.
Right. And Thomas Catan, you're with the Wall Street Journal that broke that story about them circumventing the Safari browser. Can we trust Google?
Well, I mean, that's a big question. You know, the White House has unveiled a whole privacy bill of rights, and many of the internet companies, including Google, have signed on to produce a do not track button. So you can actually go in there and press this button and you won't be tracked across the sites. But, you know, the question is, this is a voluntary framework, you know, and can we really trust Google and other companies to you know, to abide by it? Well,
given the fact that there are so many prior violations with respect to their tracking information and invading privacy rights, you know, Wi-Fi communications that they're actually tracking in several countries, and they're under investigation by approximately 18 countries now. The question is, what exactly are they collecting, and what are they doing with it, Tom?
Well, I mean, they're collecting all manner of information, you know, like many companies do, about, you know, what kind of visiting we're doing on the internet, you know, what kind of preferences we have. You know, a lot of our, you know, commerce is now happening online, and you know, other companies can also link that up with stuff that's happening offline. So, you know, the question is, you know, we don't like the idea of sort of government surveillance, and now, as a society, you know, we're handing companies the power to, you know, kind of perform a lot of surveillance of what we do. And I think a lot of us feel that, you know, we need to stop and at least think about, you know, what we're doing here.
Well, you know, it's interesting. In January, when Google announced this change in their privacy policy, no one was going to be able to opt out unless you made the decision that you weren't going to use, you know, Google, YouTube, Gmail, Picasa. 2 days ago, they came out with a new plan, a do not track button. But this do not track button, I mean, is this something that has to be repeatedly signaled in order to not track us? John?
Judge, the way that's being conceived of right now would be something that you would set your browser one time and it would send that message to all websites. The problem right now is that a number of the browsers have started to enable people to send that message, but there is no clear obligation yet on the part of the websites as to what they will do when they get the message. I'm part of a working group with something called the W3C, a World Wide Web Consortium, that is trying to come up precisely with what the company's obligations will be. And Google, by the way, is at that table.
But Google is at that table. But right now, because of the agreement with all of these internet companies, I mean, there are no real federal regulations regarding this do not track. There's no federal legislation. Instead, it's kind of an agreement among, you know, the companies that they're going to monitor and regulate themselves.
It's essentially a self-regulatory regime, and that's why I think that we really need to have privacy legislation passed. Now, to the credit of the White House, they did call for this Privacy Bill of Rights to be enshrined with legislation, which I think is essential. But as you and I know, Judge, right now, the possibility of getting any kind of bipartisan action in Washington seems pretty difficult. So I'm not sure that the legislation will be forthcoming this year.
And what about when they say that they're not going to sell the information, they're going to share it, Tom? What do they mean by that?
Well, I mean, in a sense, it's a distinction without a difference, right? Because their business is to tell advertisers that they can, use a lot of the information that they collect on you to very specifically target their ads to the right people. So whether they're actually handing it over to other companies so that they can do what they want, or they're using it themselves, I mean, that's how they make the money, by using it themselves and targeting you.
By saying that they have all this information. All right, and we do have a response from Google. Their response to our inquiry regarding their privacy policy: we're not collecting more data about users. Our new policy simply makes it clear that we use data to refine and improve your experience. This is something that we've been doing for a long time. All right, thank you to both of you for being with us, John and Thomas.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Okay, and up next.